Payne Chevrolet in Springfield. 9 decades, 3 generations, 1 tradition.
I got what I asked for at Payne Chevrolet. That's the honest truth.
Tensions were high and voices raised at a special called and crowded Springfield-Robertson County Airport Board meeting Tuesday morning. Smokey did capture the entire meeting for you. We'll roll that in a moment. But first, Robertson County Attorney Clyde Richard will sum up the meeting for us, and then he'll offer his thoughts on what we can expect in the days to come.
The vote was to find either satisfactory performance or not satisfactory. Once that vote was made, then the contract renewal, one way or another, took care of itself. So the vote was not satisfactory, which meant that the contract was not automatically renewed. Now,
Right. Understood.
then step 2 is this formation of a committee and a negotiation and discussion for the next 90 days.
What do you think about today?
Well, I think it presents an opportunity for the airport board, the city and the county, and all interested parties, including Wingnuts, to sit down and have a reasonable, business-like discussion as opposed to seeing each other in the courthouse.
And so they have 90 days.
We have 90 days. The attorneys will draw up something to set the parameters of how this will work, and we have 90 days to try to work out some new arrangement. If the airport board continues with their airport manager concept, then by necessity the FBO job duties will change somewhat. And I think Wingnuts is aware of that. So the judge also directed that the board come back and have another hearing, which has been being done this morning, and to re-examine the issue of whether or not there's been satisfactory performance of the contract.
And what are you basing that satisfactory or unsatisfactory performance on?
I just said you cannot participate. There's no.
How many of you actually have your own aircraft based here and are actual pilots, I wonder?
And they're actually seeing the day-to-day operations that they've seen with this.
Listen, if you can't behave, we're not to exercise pushing everybody out of the room. So please, I've asked you to please be quiet.
Let's adjourn the meeting.
If you don't be quiet,
after you adjourn the meeting, then let's have a public meeting after that.
This is not a public meeting.
You just said.
It is a meeting. It's not open to the public, okay?
Well, that's
please.
You chose to make it that way.
Just have respect for the board and the laws.
Have that respect for the tenants here.
Yeah,
It works both ways.
That you're supposedly representing.
If you show some respect to us, we can show some respect to you.
Go ahead, Todd.
So the issue is, has there been satisfactory performance? And the courts and the judge have asked the board to re-examine that issue and to take another vote on that issue. Now, and I suggest, and I'll have a form of a motion, Mr. Chairman, that if someone wants to make it, will be maybe appropriate to address that issue. Before you do that, though, the second thing that I want to address is that I did talk to the attorney from Wingnuts yesterday afternoon. There have been some efforts for several days to get in touch with each other. What's been discussed, and it's subject to Wingnuts' agreement and the board's agreement, and of course this is after you take a vote. Now, if you vote and find there's satisfactory performance, then there will be another 5 years of this contract. If you vote and find there's not satisfactory performance, then a backup position to that that's been discussed is perhaps the board can appoint a committee of, say, 5 persons. There's been some names suggested to sit down and negotiate with Wingnuts over the terms of a possible new contract. And for 60 or 90 days, basically nothing would happen. Wingnuts would stay on as is and during this negotiation period. So, Mr. Chairman, that's kind of a summary of where we are right now.
Okay, so we have a motion to not extend the contract under its current form.
Well, that's not really, there's not a motion.
No, I'm prepared to make that motion.
But the motion is, and I would suggest, Mr. Chairman, phrased that you find that there's been satisfactory performance, not unsatisfactory, but satisfactory performance of the contract. If someone make that motion, then you can address it, speak to it, deal with it however you want to. It needs a second, of course.
Clyde, why would the positive wording be preferable? to
Well,
the negative
because
wording?
the satisfactory performance would trigger the renewal of the contract.
But unsatisfactory performance does the same thing in reverse.
It would. You can choose that and make the motion as you see.
I would like to make that motion. I would like to find that Wingnuts has not satisfactorily performed under this contract and that we not renew.
And what grounds?
I'm not required to state grounds, and you're not participating.
Okay, do we have a second to the motion? State name.
Kirk Johnson, I second the motion.
Okay.
I would like to say that I've been deluged with emails by people who do not know the situation. They are very supportive.
I've sent you emails and
We
I
don't-
have lots of
Run in
information.
quiet, please.
They have been very supportive of Wingnuts. Most of the emails sound very much the same, but then none of them address the issues that we have been addressing here the last 6 months. None of the issues.
Which is?
We've been discussing them for the last 6 months. We're not gonna, I don't think we need to go over them all again.
I think you do.
Okay.
There's definitely look like tonight.
Do we have,
Yeah, just ignore the residents that pay
Any other-
rent every month, the state.
It's not like
Yeah.
you use the
Members?
airport yourself or have
Yeah.
anything to
Discussion.
do with it. An airport is definitely
Okay.
bigger.
would you please be quiet? So,
I've been to a lot of meetings in Robertson County and Springfield, and this issue of public hearing versus public meeting is not a small-town politics deal. It's a statewide deal, Clyde, isn't that right? It's the way meetings are conducted. If there's a public hearing, they are called, they are open, they are allowed, people are allowed to speak under certain rules, and then the hearing is closed. This is
This
a
was
public meeting.
advertised as a public meeting,
me,
not a hearing. Yeah, that was
That's right.
public
That's right.
advertising.
okay.
And we meet every 2 months, and they're open meetings, and very few people attend.
Comment by any board members, any comment or discussion on board.
Okay. Okay, so we have any more discussion from the board members? Okay.
So this would be, this motion would not necessarily be the end of this meeting, let's say.
Well, it depends on how the motion is voted on. If it's voted on because you have a quorum, if it's voted on by a majority, then you would go to step 2.
Okay, so there's a possibility of a step 2.
If the board so chose.
Just-
Mr. Chairman, would you tell me to explain step 2 one more time?
Step 2 would be that if the board so determined, and the lawyers would have to draw this up and sign by all parties, that there would be a 60 or 90-day holding period in which Wingnuts would continue after February 12th, and we would try to work out the terms of a new agreement. And there'd be a committee appointed by the board to work with Wingnuts and through the lawyers and try to accomplish that.
So, we're going to vote either to accept the extension under satisfactory conditions, or not to extend it because there is unsatisfactory.
Well, the motion on the table is to find that the performance has been unsatisfactory.
Right.
And there's a second to that, so that's the question to be put.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Richard,
I'm sorry, you can't.
I was just going to ask if we could have an orderly discussion and input from the tenants in the room, not a disorderly one. I'd ask the board to reconsider not hearing from those people that will be affected by this decision.
At this point in time, we're not going to hear from other people.
All right,
I think it's obvious. Okay, so we need to have a roll call.
Well, yes, let's get the exact words of the motion. So
I understand the motion made by Mr. Peterson is that to find unsatisfactory performance of the contract by Wingnuts for the current 5-year period.
That's right.
And there's a
Agreed.
second, I assume, by
Second.
Mr. Johnson.
We can't call the question,
We're waiting for the
So, in the
secretary to get the
process-
wording.
Okay, motion to find unsatisfactory performance by Wingnuts for the current 5-year period.
Right.
And then second by Kirk.
The chairman
Okay.
calls for question a member and take a vote.
So,
Call for question.
so I'd like to call for a vote. We have a motion and a second to the motion. Is to not,
I wouldn't repeat that. I think it's been said.
it's been said,
Yeah. And you might ask if any of the members before had it in mind.
well, any of our other members need to, like to express their points of view for discussion. Okay. So with that said, I'd like to have a roll call vote. Betty, if you'll call the roll.
Neil Peterson,
Aye.
Kirk Johnson,
Aye.
Glenn Roberts,
I think he's favorable, so what am I supposed to say?
I would say nay.
Nay.
Chris Simpkins,
Nay.
Edison Guthrie,
Aye.
Hawk Ruth,
Aye.
we have two nays and three positive.
So we have four
Four, yes. Excuse
voted
me.
aye,
Right.
four voted, and two voted no. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, may I speak to Clyde's Phase 2?
Yes.
I've given this a lot of thought, and my initial reaction would, yeah, that seems like a brotherly thing to do, and maybe a practical thing to do. My experience with people exiting the workplace is that they're usually, this would be employees as an analogy, is that they are escorted out by a guard to their car after watching them take their things from their desk to avoid a lot of negative things going on. Under the circumstances that we wanted to negotiate a contract, they answered with a lawsuit. I don't think we're in a position to be in a very friendly situation here, and I would not vote in favor of extending. I know that might create some short-term disruption, but I think we just have to work around that. That's my opinion.
Okay. Anyone else?
I have a totally different view. I appreciate you and your opinion. But my opinion is that the airport has greatly improved since they've been here. I like them. And I think these people that's sitting here should point out the fact that a lot of people like them here. And I think we're making a mistake.
Chris?
I think we need to try to work out something to renegotiate with them myself.
Edison?
Yes, I'm still, I'm still learning about this, but anyway, I appreciate every email that I got. By my count, it was 34, 2 phone calls. So anyway, that was a very educational thing, and so anyway, I didn't respond for a reason, but anyway, I appreciate people very much. I'd like to say that, and I would like to, renegotiate and have a new contract. But anyway, I would like to, have Wingnuts, in the interim. And,
Okay.
but anyway, continue talking.
Okay. Kirk?
I would not be in favor of at this point, of any further negotiations. I did it one time, but I don't now.
Well, I'll just tell you that we have reached out a number of times to have negotiations, and some of it I think at least 3 times has been in writing to try to sit down and negotiate, and those were ignored. We went verbally and opened up, even in our last meeting, we have the minutes that we opened it up to negotiations.
And I was the one that made the motion.
Yes, sir, you did. And we've still had no responses. We're in the 12th hour now. We've in the 12th hour. And I know we've got people, employees, locals, we've got a lot of support for them and understand them. And I think that we have an opportunity to go a step forward. The airport's going through a big transition right now. And the current contract, I don't think is negotiable. And I think we need to kind of start all over again. And I know we're down to the 12th hour. And if we do not extend or build a bridge to further negotiate, then they're gone. Because the courts has already ruled that we do not have to renew the contract. So I'm willing to take the step forward and ask that you all consider let's extending a bridge for 30, 40 days in order to sit down and talk and make this more reasonable, and hopefully we can come to some agreement. It doesn't hurt to give it another 30 days or more to talk about it and see if we can find something more reasonable. I know some people have got strong feelings on either side, and I agree with you. Most everybody in this room does not know does not have all the evidence. Okay? We got to remember, we didn't start the lawsuit. We're only reacting to it. Okay? So,
Can I have some input? Sure. The discussion is, and there have been efforts for discussion, and I finally wrote a letter to the lawyer from Wingnuts, and I said, we don't need to have this be 2 ships crossing in the night, especially when the lawyers are involved and are participating in that issue. Lawyers are supposed to facilitate, at least at this point, some discussion. So that led to our phone call of yesterday. Of course, there are pieces of this lawsuit that are not yet resolved. There's still issues to be resolved by the courts. The framework I see is if you vote to do this, perhaps the board has a 5-person committee, maybe 1 person that voted nay, 1 person that voted aye on the contract renewal. I think someone from the city, either the city manager or the assistant city manager, because they've been very much involved in the books and the business part of the project, and they are an ex officio member of the board. I would suggest that the 4th person be someone appointed by the county mayor, since the county mayor is on the board. And it's been suggested that Roger Blackwood, chairman of the industrial board, who his board has had a good deal of input into the finances of the new terminal, as you know. So it would be 1 person of your board that voted for the renewal, 1 not in favor of the renewal, a city representative, a county representative, and Mr. Blackwood. And that's the discussion I had with the lawyer. That's not meaning that that's what you have to do, but if you're going to vote on this, I think you ought to have some framework for how it would happen. I think the lawyers would need to draw something up that sets all this out, because we will be beyond the contract term, when it's going to end. So the lawyers would draw something up. I would suggest that you empower the chairman to sign something that follows this train of thought once the 2 lawyers get it together. Then I would think that it's got to be at least 60 days, because this agreement has to be drawn up, it has to be discussed. I think that the committee that's formed that wants some input from other people, users of the airport. They might even want to have a public hearing where people can voice an opinion. So I think it's been discussed that at least 60 days, if not 90 days, is a more reasonable period. You don't want to make it so short that really you can't accomplish anything by having such an arrangement. So at least 60 days would be a suggestion. So, Mr. Chairman, that's been the discussion and a framework that if the board voted to do this, that you could follow.
All good points. For clarification for everybody in the room, this is not just the airport board's decision to do what we're doing. It's been in conjunction, it's been well expressed and supported by the city and the county. And they have been part of this process for the last 6 months, very much part of it. And it's all been open and transient to them. And we're at the tip of the spear, and we're exercising those rights. So I agree with you, and I do believe that we need to make a motion to extend this 50 days, and we'll hold everything in place, and then we'll sit down and discuss this with whatever parties that we see necessary. If it's one that's nay and one that's yay, okay, and we'll have the lawyers. So I'll make a motion, or if you want to make a motion.
Can I make the motion? Because I've written this down. I would like to make a motion that we extend the contract with Wingnut 60 days and form a committee with one nay and one yes with attorneys and a city and county and or both representative to renegotiate a new contract with Wingnuts.
Got the motion?
Yes.
My experience with anything moving through city and county government is it goes very slowly. I would change it to 90 days, to be honest with you. Because just the processes, the meeting schedules, the notices of hearings and meetings, it all takes a lot more time than you think it's going to take.
Okay, I retract mine. And I would like to make a motion to extend it 90 days, to form a committee with one nay, one yes, with attorneys and city and county representative to renegotiate a new contract with Wingnuts.
So that's not exactly that's not saying like 7 people or 8 people, so that's available to be
You'd have Mr. Blackwood.
adjusted.
Oh, yeah, and Mr. Blackwood, I'm sorry, I let you outrun.
So is that the motion?
Yes, that's my motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
You second, okay. Edison seconded, okay. All in favor say aye. Let's do a roll call, okay, it's a good one. Betty?
Okay. Kirk Johnson.
Aye.
Neil Peterson.
Aye.
Lynn Roberts.
Aye.
Chris Simpkins.
Yes, aye.
Addison Guthrie.
Aye.
Hawk Ruth.
Aye. Let it be said.
Six.
Okay. We will put together, the lawyers put together, both lawyers discuss how they want to set this up. And we'll extend this 90 days. I think it's a good point, Neil, because we have to have the approvals of both city and county as we go through this process and their support, especially on the personal side. Okay. All right. Any more issues, questions? This meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
Good job.
I love my car that I got from Payne Chevrolet. When they first see it, it's something clean. They get to have fun in.
We actually went in with our baby when he was 2 weeks old. They were absolutely happy to answer any questions that I had.
Right now at Payne Chevrolet, get up to 20% off on select Chevys.
The negotiating process was painless.
Payne Chevrolet in Springfield. 9 decades, 3 generations, 1 tradition.
I got what I asked for at Payne Chevrolet. That's the honest truth.